and I hope you figured out from the way I teach asana, is I'm trying to help it so all of us, so that instead of seeing it as a ceasing and an end, that you realize that there's an unchanging part of every yoga pose. There's there's a part that precedes everything. And this is an empowering thing, not a thing to dread. So now here's the switch. So years ago, many years ago, my mom gave me a book and she hadn't really read it, but it was something I still have on my desk over here. It's parables. It's the teachings, uh the Thomas Gospels, which are thought to be heretical. But the claim was, I mean, so it's the teachings according to Jesus' teaching, according to his secret teachings that he taught to people that were more closer in, supposedly. That's what Thomas claims. Of course, the organized church didn't like to think that, because a lot of it, some of the parables are very different than some of the other core messages of Christianity. But one of the things that is questioned, it really has stuck with me. It made me put down the thing, and I come back to it all the time. The disciples asked Jesus, "What will the end look like?" And his reply, according to Thomas, is that so you know the beginning, such that you worry about the end. If you explore the beginning, you don't have to worry about the end. So when we center in a yoga pose, when you start to get more connected to the part of you that's quiet, let's not be so caught up in ourselves and think, oh, that's just a place of relaxation where my mind quiets down. Can you be innocent in the part of your mind-body relationship that doesn't have content, that actually is just there by not being there? So sit up straight and tall.
Is starting.
Somebody's got their mic still on, so not sure. So start to feel more rather than less. And so when you think about why you, as you center, you soften the organs of perception, and the skin on your forehead, and you let it drop, and you try to relax energy around the eyes, because the mind is in general focused outward onto the world. You have to learn better how to introspect and reflect. And some people never really get good at that. And sometimes they're happier, right? Because they never go inward, right? So you soften, you drop, you feel the inside of your mouth, you'll soften it, you let go of your jaw. So you're going to this place where the mind has less reference to pivot from and judge. And on you let your exhale out. And so the very quiet interior of human consciousness is something that actually the mind fears. Unless you have belief systems telling you that that's the next place, but that's part of what the Dave Matthews dialogue is about. There's a place in there that precedes the happening that you don't get to control. So you soften the organs of perception, feel the bottoms of your feet, and then what's happening is sort of like the blood poured from angels, right? The hands of angels. It's like, wait, I'm alive here. The warehouse isn't completely empty, right? So you feel your feet on the floor, your sitting bones on the seat. You start to gently lift your chest. You expand. So you use the ceasing as a form of dropping to ground to find the earth, but then the life force can also expand back into space, but you keep both. And eventually you realize that the ceasing or the spaces in your body are part of your grounding, not just the dropping. And that the ceasing part, the empty part, actually helps you expand. So you expand, the breath kind of mirrors this expansion. So You inhale and the lungs open and the cavity opens and it feeds the fingers of the spine, especially around the back side of the spine. As you take that inhalation, feel your feet and your sitting bones, so you get them connected to each other. And then when you exhale, you lengthen your spine and come even more into life while the energy's dissipating. Now, to give the mind more to hold on to, if you can stay on balance, bring your hands into prayer. Find your midline. Right? So now you've got a midline. Again, your mind is looking at first for footholds, but then you got to drop those footholds away while keeping them with you. Again, the energy here expands. So your inhalation captures some of that. It feeds through the ribs into your spine. The exhalation extends your spine, drops you down, and extends your spine up. Now, as you've been aware of all this, you might have tensed the inside of your mouth. You might have slightly dropped your chest. Repose. Stay patient. At the deepest level, it doesn't change. We do. Good. And then release. Bring your hands down to your thighs, palms up. Take your sternum up towards your chin. In other words, invigorate. Subjugate the brain and the mind as you drop your chin. It is awesome that we're alive. Keep breathing into each nostril. Into each lung. Prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. Feel the bottoms of each foot, especially at the heel. Drop and rise. Let things come through you because you're sturdy. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. In order for things to come through you, you need to be sturdy. In order for prana to travel through you, the prana is already here. Whether you get to have it come through you more has to do with alignment and being sturdy and open at the same time. It has to do with both. All right, it's like lighten it up a little bit. We're doing what we always do, is just get some space in your spine. Like, so when you lift up and take weight off your rump and you let your sitting bones, the weight hang you down, and you're making your spine kind of lengthen, right? And you're introducing space into your spine, right? Space into your spine, right? And so it makes you more aware of how compressed you are when you sit back down. So compression tends to dull sensation, right? right? And so, and you're gonna have to, I have to sit back down into my chair, but I'm wanting to stay with the fact that there's can be space. And what's wild about our consciousness is even when I sit back down into the compression, right, I can remember the sensation of space, right? I can like, because I can go a little bit back into the past and keep it with me. So now when I lift up and I get more space in my spine, I can sit down a little differently. And I can try to keep a lift in my chest under my collarbones. So I keep some of the space. And then I'm going to let it go back to the way I usually hang with gravity when I'm not doing yoga. And here's the sack of potatoes hitting the floor, right? So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go, wait. And then maybe I'm going to jiggle a little bit. And like I usually joke and say, shake that butt around a little bit, like, so what if this space, what if you were innocent with it? What if you thought that it was like, so one of the things that I love, it's another thing that, I can only really think about 3 or 4 of the things have really struck my attention from the gospel according to Thomas. And one of them is that one of the things he says I really like that Jesus apparently said, maybe, whatever, said, the world is designed to be revealed to you. Nothing is being hidden, right? Nothing's being hidden. No one's got secret knowledge. Its design is to reveal, right? So it's not like, how sitting's the new smoking. It's not like the universe has only got a compressed spine, right? It's like, no, if you want to not feel the dulling sensation of compression, the world's asana can show you different places. So I'm going to lean forward onto my table and I'm going to get more length in my back because maybe the spaces really freaking matter. If I can stay innocent and don't expect them to like cure cancer, right? But the spaces themselves are really good to feel. They're worth it. So I'm going to increase it. So I'm going to go, hey, I'm going to try to like make the space go travel through my body better. So I'm going to hit down through my sitting bones, lift my chest, broaden across my sacrum, broaden across my collarbones, drop my shoulder blades down, and going, hey, if I don't do that too hard, if I don't get lost in trying to overdo it, I feel more whole in this position. And I'm going to take a couple of breaths. I'm going to use like my breath to put a mark down so my consciousness keeps it longer. This is why like you do dog pose off in the beginning of a traditional class or any class is that you're trying to like go, oh yeah, this is what it feels like when my spine's more extended. I like it. So now when I sit back, I'm not going to do as much compression. I'm going to try to keep it with me into the next pose. Right. And then go, oh yeah, this is, and I'm going to bounce a little bit because I've been bouncing more in my practice, trying to remember that everything moves. Not everything has to be so freaking heavy. Shut up, reckless mind. I love that line. Your mind will like smush the world and worry about black cats rather than celebrating black cats, right? Because that's what your mind does, right? So don't be reckless with what's given. Take your legs wide. Right. So again, I think this is part of the warm up we do every week where we want to get the space at the base of the spine to be projecting, right, into the room. This is why people do standing poses in traditional classes. They change the flow of energy from their spine through their legs and they make more stuff go. And it turns out that almost everyone that I've ever encountered as a student has tight groins. Or if they have really open, loose groins, they're dull in their head. They haven't been tight enough to know how great it is to be open, right? So now as I'm having my base of my spine go into space like this, I lean forward, put the outside of my wrists into the inside of my legs, and I lift my chest. I'm adding different spinal energy to a movement. So I've got a forward gravity. As soon as I go forward with gravity, right, there's going to be gravity, and the weight distribution is going to go all through my legs because I'm going to the front edge of my sitting bones. I'm amplifying that as that thing that happens. Even if I don't push out my legs, that's one thing. If I put the outside of my hand on it into my legs, and I lift my chest as I come forward. Does anyone feel more stuff go through your legs? Nod your head and say, yes, yes, I do, I do, I do. And now go back to where the mind hangs out and worries about black cats. Don't follow prana and just go backward and forward. It's not, except now that I've done it a couple of times, my mind remembers it. So, but this is not as cool as this, right? So I'm gonna go back and go this. And I'm gonna jump my chest, come forward. I'm not gonna go flying out of the chair, but I kind of want to. So we're not that far, just so you know. So I used to do this pose before my shoulders weren't torn, the rotator cuffs. There's an arm balance where you can come forward and your legs go kind of up here a little bit. And so I got my hands on my foot pedals right here. So you can put on the seat of your chair, right? So there's an arm balance where you come up and your legs kind of go up over the outside of your arms and you're just balancing on your hands. Well, I'm not that far from it right here, right? Because like I'm coming forward, I'm springing. And the thing is that people think arm balance is about being strong in your arms, right? And they are a little bit, but really it's learning how to inwardly lift from below the navel up. And so you hover in gravity. You actually do kind of a version of one of the bandhas, right? But blah, 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 don't worry about that. Where you kind of hover your weight in gravity so that not all the weight is on your arms, right? So here, I'm actually near the position of if my legs were straight and they were more up here, I'd be in that arm balance position, right? But here, I'm going to make it dynamic. So remember, I'm coming forward. I'm going like this. Hey, Angelique, do you remember this class when you had this breakthrough back in one of the trainings? Right? She was worried she couldn't do arm balance again. So then come up and lift and propel the chest up. Right? And so we're watching the legs extend like this, right? We're not watching it go right down to the feet. So when I come forward, I change gravity. Now, instead of just lift my chest, I'm going to lift my tailbone up through my chest and extend, broaden across my sacrum and have the energy go this way and try to keep my spine light in space. Right? So instead of just doing what we did before, which would be coming forward and jumping, now we're coming forward, jumping, but the legs are going straight. The energy is coming out through my spine. So from outside of my hips, out through my knees. And actually, I can go down through my heels and it helps the energy go out through my knees. If I can figure out how to do that, you got to know how to do that. Right? I'm broadening across my chest. I'm broadening across my sacrum. I'm extending from my sitting bones out to the top of my head. And I'm projecting my energy out this way. So if you're having trouble feeling that, just take one arm out. Take one arm out. Take one arm out. This is the energy we want to come out through your legs, right? Now I'm gonna like be the Black Knight in Monty Python and pretend I don't have arms. So I'm gonna have the projection of my legs be my arms and my legs, right? I'm gonna if I try to do all that from behind the balance point, it's gonna feel dull. My spine is compressed. I'm gonna come forward. I'm gonna hit through my sitting bones. And as I lift my chest and across my collarbones, across my sacrum, I'm gonna extend through my legs and through my arms out into space. Breathe. Find your legs, find your tailbone, find the tips of your knees. Use your lower diaphragm, the intersection between the subtle body and the physical body, and extend out through your knees as you lift your chest. Good, and then release. By the way, I had no intention of teaching an arm balance. I've never taught this before. So what the hell? And that's what you get when you start talking about black cats. So I need to do a check-in because I might have gone pretty far into the warehouse. All right. So Angelique, turn on your thing.
My mic's on.
Do you remember the time in the training where you did?
We didn't do this one. We did
I know.
side crow.
Yep, yep. But do you remember the feeling of that?
Yes, I do.
Let's like give the students a little context.
I was actually just talking. I was asking another question, and I was like, I was not sure of myself, so I was kind of getting myself all like, I have a question about when you, and he just was like, wait a minute, you're doing side crow, and I was like, what? He's like, just put your hand down, because I had a block right there, and I was like, oh my gosh, because I just was so sad about not doing vinyasa and not doing all these things, and my body was moving into this pose that I hadn't done in so long, and it just was naturally going there. And so then we had the
Yeah,
whole class going into side crow, I think.
yes. I'm gonna go farther in this. Bethany, while I'm talking, can you find a picture of the arm balance I was talking about? And then a
Firefly.
picture of side crow. And
Oh,
so you can share your screen in a second. All right. So to give a little more context, because it's hard to tell a story when you're in it. So
sorry.
yeah, no, you did good. It's a good story, but like you're afraid to go into more detail of how cool it was. So in general, Angelique, and I'm gonna talk, Angelique, you gotta be, you're okay, right? I'm gonna tell you some of the story, how I see it. Like she was being, like you said, very sad about not being able to do vinyasa and that she wasn't gonna be able to do so many things. And what was able to happen was all of a sudden, although she wasn't flying through the air physically, she got a sense of rise and lift in a position that was very similar between her arms and her spine. Because guess what? It's your spine that's doing yoga. It always was your spine. The arms and the legs, and especially the legs, are trying to draw prana in different positions from the universe through your spine, right? So it's not nearly as much. I mean, there's a reason why the magic energy, Kundalini energy, is in your spine. There are whole methods of yoga that just focus on the spine, right? And breath and all this other stuff.
Did you
So
want me to share my screen with the
yeah,
picture?
do you have the pictures up? So we're doing this weird, crazy class coming from the existential warehouse of Dave Matthews, right? Okay, so that's the pose. You see the pose that I'm trying to get you to feel. Now, what's interesting is we're doing a little differently. So she's in more of a forward bend. The
There's
reason,
other ones I could pull up too.
yeah. So this one's less of a forward bend, yeah, right. But notice what you don't realize here is a couple things is happening to keep her in the air. Obviously, her legs are on her shoulders, right? But there's something really important. Her deep sternum is profoundly lifted,
Mhm.
right? More than you know, and it's her deep sternum, but it's not lifting on its own. The very base of her spine, her very, very low abdomen is lifting into her sternum. She's hovering in space as much as she's holding up in space. See the crispness? Can you blow one of those up? Yeah, you see it. You lost it, Bethany. What happened? Okay, so get the one where her not where her legs are crossed, but her toes are pointed, right? So I want you to like remember it's not about where your appendages are. So am I losing too many people here? Okay. Judy, come with me. Okay, so here's what I mean. So if she were to, can you try to intuit this? If she were to relax her ankles and feet, do you see how much heavier it would get on her arms?
Mm-hmm.
Can you feel it kind of intuitively? So what you don't realize that her deep sternum, and she's super strong, so she looks like a gymnast, and so a lot of us are thinking, oh, I could never do that. Wrong. When you watch someone like Bika Sengar do this, she's a really muscular yogi, and that's great. But I've seen this pose done by people that aren't nearly as muscular and intimidating to look at. There's a magic thing happening with gravity. She's doing it with physical strength, but there's a magic thing happening in gravity from the base of her spine and the lift of her chest. And it's continuing, and that's why she's pointing. It looks a little bit too gym. That's not the way you should really have your feet all the way, but like she's making sure the energy continues into the room. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing, beyond her feet. So there's from her tailbone beyond her feet out through her legs, and it's being not just, if she were to drop her sternum, her arms would get way more of the load. She's hovering in space and holding up with her arms. Her pose makes it look super physical, and it is a physical pose. I'm not trying to say it isn't. So come on back to, you can stop sharing the screen. So my point is that there's a way to get that dynamic action, right, in from the spine. And so we're going to go through it again. And so that's what I want you to see when I say continue from the triangle, from the tailbone out through the knees, and get the spine extension coupled with the lift of the lower abdomen. But I was emphasizing how the energy is going beyond her legs, because that's really important if you're going to fly. Right? If you just try to do it from where you think you can control, it's not going to, your relationship to prana is going to be different. All right. All that being said, what the hell's going on here? We better shake around a little bit, because you better jiggle a little bit, because you know what you don't want to be in an arm balance? You don't want to feel heavy. Right? If you go in there going, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to lift this up. It's just a big, huge sack of cement. You got trouble. You're going to go into it. You got to find where everything's light. So I'm just going to twist it a little bit. So I'm getting some action into some feeling into my spine. So I'm leaning forward. So this is how it turns more into crow pose, which you're going to have to pull up in a little bit, Bethany. Right? So I'm doing this not to twist as much as I'm to show my mind that there's an energy that comes, an empowering energy that comes from being able to rotate your spine, because I want that to help me feel light in an arm balance. Because a lot of times people make mistakes with arm balances because they forget that they're flying. They think they're doing a push-up. Right? Okay, so you're turning this way. Arm balances are really strong flying push-ups, and the flying matters more than the push-up. All right, so I'm popping around a little bit, trying to get the spaces to feel lighter, the spaces that come from the empty warehouse, right? And they happen to be happening through the blood that's being dropped by angels, right? You're alive, but you got the warehouse in there too, right? So I'm moving my butt around. So as I lift up, I'm pointing a knee and then another knee. And all I'm doing is trying to change my mind's judgment about the way the energy inside my body feels. Now, one of the things about trying to see that you're about to do an arm balance is you gotta be playful, right? You gotta be innocent again. You gotta think that the empty space isn't just about calming your mind. It's about joining the world. All right. So now we're gonna locate it again in a version of dog pose, right? We're gonna go through the sequence again. right? So I want you to get from the sitting bones through the chest, through the top of the head, across the sacrum, right? And then back up. Now the trick is, what we want to get is this feeling. Now come back up, right? Change gravity again. I want you to notice the way that prana changes when you change gravity. Come on the front end of your sitting bones, right? Right, so that's going to be more weight on your legs, right? But remember, but now your legs are more together, so you're still working in like two-dimensional, it's kind of simpler space, right? So now we're going to back up and take your legs wide, right? And I'm just going to feel the change. Now, if I just stay with my mind, I'm just feeling, that's usually I stop here. Maybe we turn these into standing poses usually, right? Right, and you could a little bit, you could just like kind of know that there's freedom here, right? But we're about to go towards kind of a push-up that actually floats and flies on its own, right? So now, as you come forward with your legs wide, I want you to notice, and hopefully when you come forward, like I can't quite fully get my feet on the floor, but I want to feel the gravity shift down towards my floor. I'm going to push down on my legs a little bit so I make that connection, right? So I use gravity to get my legs, remember? Because eventually we're going to want the energy to go not just down to the floor, but straight up from the leg. And you can actually use that your heels on that floor to get your leg to go straight out energetically, but that's a trick and we can talk about it. So we're going like we're doing this and watching the gravity shift the prana, right? The prana as it flows through my body, right? So now we're going to do that and we're going to lift the chest. Right? So we're doing, and so as we come forward with the chest, I'm pushing on the inside of it because I'm trying to show my brain that and my mind that there's a connection between gravity and my energy going out through my knees. So here's a principle, and don't listen to it if it's a bridge too far. It's almost a bridge too far for me. If you can't have a straight line in a yoga pose, pick a right angle. Now, so the idea here is that I can't get my leg out straight. If I press down here and get the right angle, there's a way for me to feel the energy go out straight through my knee. More so than if it was halfway there, right? So the right angle, a right angle continues. All the energy doesn't just go down. When the right angle helps energy go this way too, right? Okay, so now when I'm here and I'm lifting my chest and I'm watching it go out, to extend out through your legs like the woman did in the picture of the pose. If I go down through my heel, it can help me propel the energy out past my knee, right? And if that's too much for you, it doesn't matter, right? So, but so as you lift the chest here, now I want you to, as you change gravity, follow the flow of prana into your legs. I want you to not only lift your chest and broaden across your collarbones, I want you to broaden across your sacrum, right? As you push into your legs. So you come forward, broaden across the sacrum, broaden across the wrist, and come forward some, right? Because as you come forward, you're going to get closer to the position that the woman was in the picture. The problem is when I come too far forward, I start to collapse towards the ground too much, right? So I want you to emphasize keeping the deep sternum lifted. Okay. All right, so now enough talk. I'm gonna lighten myself up a little bit because I want to get light again. So I'm gonna bounce a little bit. And as I bounce, as I lift on my foot pedals here, on my footrest, I'm lifting my tailbone up a little bit. And as I lift my tailbone up and draw up, I'm trying to feel where my feet are, right? So I get the jiggle, so I get the wonder of the empty warehouse. Okay, so now I'm gonna come forward, lift up, lift my chest, I'm gonna extend, broaden across my sacrum, lift my chest and extend beyond my knees. Good, and then release. So, is anyone getting hot? I'm getting really hot all of a sudden here. Okay, so that's because shit's happening. So now what I know that I can add to get the feeling of my legs, not just lifting my chest, I'm really gonna wanna lift my very low abdomen up, which is really important in an arm balance. So you got to coordinate that, lifting your very low abdomen with the center of your chest. So before you try to come into the full pose, come forward a little bit. Lift your very low abdomen up through your chest, right? Because this is going to be what holds you up in the air. Okay, and then release. So are you kind of with me, or am I talking to myself here? Yeah, okay. Because that's what happens. That's why Dave worries about the warehouse, right? Because all of a sudden you feel kind of alone and stuff. So I'm rocking back and forth because I'm about to go for it. I'm about to go for the full pose. So I'm trying to make sure I don't get too heavy in it. My mind doesn't try to dominate what's happening here. I want to stay innocent. Okay, so now I'm going to come forward. I'm going to extend out through my knees, broaden across my tailbone. Lift the very low abdomen up to the chest. But as I do, that propels the energy beyond my knees. So then try it again. Come here, come up, fly, fly, fly from underneath your tailbone, right? Out through your knees. Broaden across the collarbones. Stay in the strength of a push-up, but fly out through the knees, up to the spine, and then release. You know how hard it is to talk and do that? Whew. Oh golly, don't talk while you're doing this. Ooh, that takes your breath away. I'm gonna do it again, you're gonna do it again, or I'm gonna talk you through it, and then I'm gonna do it without words because that got my breath too funny. Whew. Okay. So you come forward. I'm not gonna do it all the way. You come forward, ground. Lift the tailbone up to the chest, broaden across collarbones. And then when you really go for it, when you engage your arms more on your chair and lift really hard, go out through your legs. All right, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to harden my breath a little bit. Kind of a strong ujjayi because this is a hard pose. Good, and then release. Bring your legs back together. Anybody feel anything? Yeah, good. So I'm going to hang here for a second and maybe go into a position that I know how to ground stuff. So my elbows are on the table, my hands are together. I'm feeling my sitting bones, I'm feeling my heels. I'm coming back to my own container. I'm letting the kind of the rushes be. I'm not trying to like erase the rushes. I'm trying to give them structure, right? I'm trying to let them, because when you extend, see, I've made this mistake before. When you're trying to extend your limbs into the empty space that your limbs aren't in, it can be taxing on the nervous system, right? So I'm coming back to the container because I know this. I know not to think that doing an arm balance in a chair doesn't depend on doing it harder. It depends on playful innocence and a belief in its power, the power of the spine, the wisdom of the spine. Power is not quite the right word. Wisdom's not the right word either. The dynamicness of the spine. Remember, I think it's an evolutionary accident that it broke into two and became legs, and then broke into two and became arms. right? That's just how the spinal energy grew. So I'm taking a couple of breaths, right? All right. So Bethany, what time is it? Ooh, golly. All right. So show the picture of the crow pose.
All right, I'm coming.
Hurry.
I'm trying.
All right. No, where's the one where it's twisted, where the
Oh, you
legs are,
want side crow? Okay,
yeah,
give
side
me
crow,
just
pardon
a
me.
second. Yep,
Yeah.
no problem.
Because for us, it's going to be a little bit easier to feel a side crow. And we've been setting it up with all I've been calling it Mauritiusan 1 more. But we've been kind of setting this up a little bit. Hurry up.
But you can go from crow and into firefly, by the
Oh,
way.
shoot.
Oh, what's Firefly?
That's that one with the legs straight out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's not letting me share the picture that I wanted. So just a second. Sorry, y'all.
My God.
I had it pulled, both of these pulled up, I swear.
Turn the lights on and don't let and watch the black cat changing colors.
Okay,
We
let's see if it
can
lets me
walk
do it.
under ladders and swim as the tides roll us around and around. There you go. So this, you almost had it there for a second. Way to screw it up. Anyone
Keeps
talk
not
to,
liking me to share. I'm so
yeah,
sorry. I'll get it.
someone's trying to make 10 cents off their fit,
Yeah, for sure they are.
so it's like, okay, I guess it's, you learn the pose from the lineage and you're thinking you should charge other people for doing it. Way to go. Way to go, yoga. Way to go. Way to go, commercialization of yoga, right?
Okay, this one isn't quite as nice, but I think it'll actually,
Yeah, at least we're not getting charged.
I think.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So this class, after this dynamic stuff, we're kind of doing that. But so this is the kind of thing that all of a sudden Angelique could kind of see how she was in it. So till you see you see the picture. And again, don't get caught up. Wait, leave it, right? Don't get caught up in the limbs as much. Think about, like, she would have to be really holding up the base of her spine in space. If she were to spread her feet apart or her ankles, the pose would get way heavier, right? If she were to, like, there's certain things that would make gravity go right into her muscles. When I say like Chaturanga Dandasana or, some of those poses are like actually inversions, it's because she has to learn to have her spine hovering above the ground. She has to learn how to take work out of her wrists, right? In order to do it. But in order to take work out of her wrists, she has to go down through her hands and lift up, and her spine needs to lift the energy up, not her arms, in order to stay there. Okay, undo it, right? So when I say we've been kind of setting this up a little bit for a long time, right? When I've had you go down, forward, and turn, right? Right. So come down and turn. Remember in the beginning, I said, like, I want you to feel the dynamic energy of the twist. So what happened with Angelique is that she was able to come down and put her hands on a block or a low bench. It was a Setu Bandha bench, right? So if you have something like that around you, you can do this at home. But let's say you get your hands over here and you have something to hold on to, right? And I'm going to hold on to my wheel, but I'm only going to do it with one hand, right? So I'm in this position right now, right? Now the difference, instead of thinking this as a standing pose, which we often have, which would be, and I had you have your arm over your head, that's revolved Parsvakonasana or Parsvakonasana, right? You're here. Now channel the energy of the woman being off the ground, right? So you're kind of in a similar position. And remember, I told you it was about the spine. Can you make your spine and your legs feel like it's turning skyward, not just your spine, right? So you're down here It's very dynamic, right? So I'm going for leverage off my knee. And instead of thinking about, oh, I'm going to do a standing pose or a really deep twist like Marichasana 1, I'm going to think about flying through the air here, which means I'm going to hit down through my tailbone, lift through my chest, lift through the top of my head, broaden across my collarbones, broaden across my sacrum. And I'm going to fly in space, going to get lighter. Remember the jiggle on your sitting bones? Get lighter there. So have your sitting bones go off your chair as your spine is really strong. And then release. That just made me break in an instantaneous sweat, by the way. That one heated me way up. I'm not going to be able to do it as well on the other side because of the way my scoliosis is, but let's go the other way. So I'm going to go down over here, get down. So go over to the right now. I gotta fix my shirt here. Okay. So I'm gonna go down over here, way over. Right? I gotta reposition. Oh, there, I got it better. So now I get it to where my spine is turning, right? And it's lifting, and I'm lifting my tailbone up into my abdomen as I hold my legs together and extend, right? So instead of like thinking, oh, I'm gonna do just a twist or evolved standing pose, I'm gonna extend and lengthen. And remember to jiggle on my sitting bones, because remember, she's got air under her butt. So there's a jiggling sensation there, a lighter sensation. Extend the spine so the legs are bent to join the spine. The knees are bent so the energy joins the spine. So as the legs join the spine, the tailbone has to continue down past to the ground in this position. And you hold and you twist up. Good, and then release. Holy moly, come back to center. So if you're at home practicing, which you are, by the way, what would you do to come back to, because we're at the end of class, right? I hope if that was an exertion for you, good God, you're robbing yourself and the class. So I'm going to jiggle my arms a little bit. I'm going to have fun and jiggle a little bit on my spine. I'm going to find a little bit of dog pose or a little bit of grounding again, creating structure for like anyone. I've got that kind of feeling going on in me. So I'm finding a way that I know, whatever your way is, where I get the structure of my bones being the structure for the prana, right? So the muscular exertion comes back to the bones. So I'm feeling my hands together, I'm feeling my elbows, I'm feeling my sitting bones, I'm feeling my feet. Without doing the pose, I'm gently lifting my chest to revisit the exertion, but not go into it. Trying to show it can come back to my bones. Because I want the empty spaces to get nourished in Shavasana. Okay, so then I'm going to come up. Now I've got the bones and the empty spaces, and I'm feeling a little bit like, whoo, right? So now I'm going to make sure that I land this kind of floaty energy into my chair. Let the world hold it up. Let my chair hold it up. Find a way to balance my head over my neck and my neck into my body. My mind is still a little bit freaked, so I gotta consciously let go of my teeth, the inside of my mouth, because it didn't happen right away. because I'm still kind of quaking from the movement. So I'm finding the lightness that never leaves you. It's always here. The ceasing is not always heavy. It's also light and freeing, just not for the mind. Lips together, just teeth slightly apart. Feel your breath. Trust your bones. They keep you grounded. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. In a second, when you open your eyes, try to, as you open your eyes, open the center of your chest with your eyes. Then close them again. And then again, let your chest follow the eyes out. Ground the eyes going out. When we judge the world so much, we forget to include, I don't just mean our emotional heart, but in order for the mind to critically judge everything, the energy out the eyes has to be more disembodied, more mentally judging, right? So when you practice like combining the two, you're going to find yourself, it's a body practice to help you to be less judgmental, especially in a time when everything's so screwed up or seemingly screwed up, right? All right. So if this was a pretty taxing class, be nice to yourself today. I can tell I need to be. And there's something else I wanted to say. I hope the class kind of worked for you, Because honestly, I've never taught arm balances before in online for sure, but in at that level in an adaptive class, I've hinted at them with Angelique before in a training because she was being sad about not being able to do them. And so part of it is to recognize, like that don't forget, like it's the spine that does yoga. Remember, I said one of my big moments was I realized it's about the spine, stupid. Right? It's like I think it's all me trying to do all these crazy stuff. I did crazy stuff enough to break my leg, right? It's like, wait, no, it's actually about the spine the whole time. But the other thing is that it doesn't I want you to know, this is what I want to say. I want you to know that I intended from the Dave Matthews stuff that went on too long, I intended to teach a class about the pure observer, about the observer becoming part of the whole. You don't observe with your eyes, the pure observer, whatever that is, and we're all like becomes part of the whole happening. So the observation is by being part of the whole, not by watching something in particular, and that is a playful place, not a solemn place. That's what, because if you judge the warehouse solemnly, the empty space, that when the mind gets too involved trying to process the existential empty warehouse, right? It gets all caught up, starts to worry that, hey, it's ending. And that's where it's like, well, maybe that's actually where it's beginning, right? And that's why you study the beginning to know the end. At least that's what one dude said. I'm okay with that, right? All right, hands together. Be happy with your emptiness. Don't always make it causes your mind to suffer, but your mind's not the only processor, right? Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you.